goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John and Elaine Woolscroft.
How in the hell are you two today?
I am fantastic.
I'm good.
Thank you for asking.
Goddamn wonderful. Glad to hear it.
So happy.
Great. We're on episode 89.
Wow.
We are getting old.
We're almost be at 100.
Still not as old as my 99-year-old aunt.
Our show,
No, there you go.
Great aunt. My
our
bad.
show's going to go to a home soon.
We're already looking into hospice care.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. We're so far from dead. We're so good. We're so
good.
good.
We're good. We got another 89S.
Yeah,
Maybe.
we do. At least. I feel
least.
strong.
Yeah.
Maybe 7,000.
Maybe 7,000.
Somewhere between 89 and 7,000.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So this week we're going to be doing a retrospective of a filmmaker that honestly I attribute to kind of starting this podcast. Okay, because when I initially came up with the idea of doing the Cinema Psycho show, it was after reading a review, not a review, but an interview with Kevin Smith, in which he said that as a filmmaker, a really good distribution strategy is to create a podcast because it gets out to everyone.
Right.
And it helps you create an audience. So we're going to be talking about Kevin Smith and his films today.
Yep. Our third, I believe this is our third retrospective. We've
Yeah.
done Burton and Tarantino. And speaking of Tarantino.
Speaking of Tarantino,
yeah.
our news kind of has to deal with him.
Yeah.
So this was a messed up story that came out, and I think that this is a great example of not hiding in Hollywood anymore.
Yeah.
And if you do something shitty, like you're gonna get caught. So when filming Kill Bill 2 in 2004, Uma Thurman was in a pretty decent car accident because of unsafe conditions and what she calls negligence to the point of criminality, though she did not think with malicious intent.
Mm-hmm.
But however, the cover-up that ensued was absolutely with malicious intent. So Uma Thurman, she actually released the footage on her Instagram this week, detailing it. I mean, it's messed up. Like you see the impact,
really
and
terrifying.
she hits her head, and I guess she's had permanent neck and knee damage ever since this accident. But they were filming in Mexico, like I said, for Kill Bill 2, and it was a very sandy road that she was supposed to be driving this convertible on, and she really wanted the stunt driver to do it. She wasn't comfortable with the scene. But Tarantino kind of talked her into it, telling her it was a straight road, and I guess there was an S curve in it that he didn't anticipate. Now, I'm not a real big fan of Tarantino right now because he said some really fucked up things about Roman Polanski's rape victim.
What did he say specifically?
That she wanted it.
Oh,
you were not expecting me to say that,
No,
did you? You thought it was
no.
going to be something else. Like,
I thought you were going to say it kind of like in a Tarantino voice, like, well,
she wanted it, right?
she wanted it, right?
yeah, no.
Just because she was drugged up and underage, she wanted that D, okay?
Yeah, apparently in Tarantino's world,
Horrible.
he can't even understand the idea that if you're 13, you can't give consent.
No.
Even if you do say yes, which I don't think she did. But anyway,
Yeah. When I was
fuck you,
13, I
Tarantino.
wanted candy for dinner. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, who am I going to be fucking?
Like, you're still waiting for regular parts of your brain to arrive
Yep.
at 13. Anyway, fuck you, Tarantino. But he claims that he didn't realize that was there. Now, whether I believe it or not, Uma Thurman believes it. So that's
The way I see it is I can't see with as long as of a relationship that Tarantino has had with Uma Thurman that this was malicious at all.
well. I mean, I do think also that he's a director and he wanted his way.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
he-
I'm not saying that he didn't usurp safety for his vision. He did.
Yeah.
This is a minor John Landis kind of
Oh, yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
For those that may not know, in the Twilight Zone movie, the original actor in the John Landis section of it was decapitated by a helicopter that lost control because John Landis did not use the right safety precautions in the scene because he wanted his
Oh, it was him
shot to
and
be
two children.
Yeah, Yeah, and the 2 children died as well because he wanted the shot to be as amazing as possible, but it ended up costing people's lives. Like obviously, John Landis didn't intend for them to die, but
right. But in this case, what I'm saying is that Tarantino says that he didn't know that the road was like that.
Vic Morrow, thank you. Yeah.
He was saying that he didn't know, and I'm just wondering if he just coerced Uma Thurman and he did know and just thought it would be fine. That's all I'm saying. Like. I'm taking it a little step further, but he claims that, it's the biggest regret of his career and one of the biggest regrets of his entire life, because she was fucked up, and their friendship, they were really close, but they did not speak for a few years after that because she was so upset and so angry. And I guess they eventually hashed it all out over having dinner, and, and she kind of laid out how much it sucked and how mad she was at him. And as a result, he was filming at the time, so we have a full video account, and kind of to atone for his actions, he gave her the footage, which was something that she'd wanted for a really long time, because I want to get these names right now. Of course, the inimitable Harvey Weinstein, he was a big forerunner of covering this up.
I've heard there's a lot of stories about
silencing it.
Uma was one of the women he attacked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So there was that too.
Well, I don't think anything penetrating happened between them, but he went after her.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, if you were an actress and you had a pulse and you were under 190 pounds, I'm pretty sure Harvey Weinstein tried to.
Oh, probably. Anyway, the cover up also involved. She names Lawrence Bender and E. Bennett Walsh, and I'm not sure if they're producers or if they were. Part of the. I'm not sure what capacity.
Producers.
Yeah, that's my guess too, but I'm not sure what capacity they were in. But the incident was covered up. Evidence was destroyed. They didn't investigate. They brushed it under the rug. And, she said that she hopes that, obviously Weinstein's hopefully gone for good. But, the other two, she said, I hope that they treat other clients better, and that, this job that they perform in which they take money, they actually want to operate it with decency. So kind of calling them out, of the shitty things that they've done. And I think it's nice that this came to light. I had no idea.
Well, what's sad is that, the Twilight Zone movie thing was in the 80s. This was in the early 2000s. I don't think they ever learned from their mistakes. And I get wanting the best looking shot possible, yada, yada, yada. But, somebody, a stuntman in Walking Dead died recently. That shouldn't happen.
That was a true accident, and I do think in stunt work, I think that the risk is a little higher. But do you remember that woman who was killed a few years ago? She was a videographer, didn't
she? Was a PA,
Sarah something. Yeah. I think she was a camera operator.
Oh yeah, she was
because I think our friend Jamie knew her.
Okay, yeah.
But what show was she killed on?
The hell is it? It was the. I should know this.
Oh, I can't remember. This happened a while ago, but they did memorialize her recently at an award show because she was killed. There's no reason that her death should have happened. I think no deaths should happen on a set, of course, but with stunt work, I do think there's more variables at play. So it's not quite
Sarah Jones. And
Sarah Jones.
The movie was Midnight Rider.
Okay, yeah, and she was killed.
She was killed on a bridge.
Yeah.
Because the filmmakers went to jail. They went to prison.
Wow.
The director as well as the I believe the producer was also.
Oh, wow.
Basically
they were negligent.
They didn't contact the train company to use the rails.
Oh god.
So they were filming on a bridge that they didn't clear. They had all their gear and everything. They wanted to get the shot.
Oh my god!
And the train was coming because they had no notice that they were on the bridge, and it killed her.
Oh my god! I didn't realize it was so grisly.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Whew.
Yeah, Sarah Jones had been on Vampire Diaries.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I wanted to say it, but I didn't think that's where she died.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
I'll be
Poor
honest with
thing.
you. I've worked on independent films, and I've heard of people who've worked on films, and I really worry about the work conditions.
It's a big
of some of these
it's a
things.
big concerns because too, a lot of these positions are contracted or temporary or freelance, and you don't have a lot of protections. If you say no, then you probably that's the end of your job because they say, cool, well, you're fired. There's not a lot of protections in place, especially at the independent level, obviously.
It's also a matter of my contention with it was just the amount of hours that some people work.
Oh, sure.
You know,
and you're
like,
tired,
you
know.
You might be working 12, maybe 13, maybe 14 hours at sometimes, if not longer, if you don't have the shot or whatever.
Right.
And there's always the teardown of everything and you set it back up again. So, like, I've always been concerned, and I think in the news this is starting to come to light, of the work conditions in independent film are not exactly the greatest.
And there's a lot of low-level stuff that, people just, don't have any defense against. Like you said, like a too long work day and, driving home tired.
Yeah.
Like that's messed up and, all those things. So but at this level, because Uma Thurman in 2004 was very famous and very powerful.
I would say she was at the top of her game.
And if no one was there to protect her at that point, that's just unacceptable.
I think ultimately what has to change is one, liability.
Accountability.
I think you have to, one, have insurance, and two, also use common sense. If the director behind it is saying, oh yeah, we can just go ahead and lay on this road and do all sorts of shit without actually clearing the road, you tell the director, sorry, fuck you, we're not risking our lives because you want to get a shot.
Yeah. And it's just good that it's out now, but it's just a shame that it had to happen in the first place because Uma Thurman, she's still messed up to this day.
Yeah.
Like she's had permanent damage. They actually had to take her to the hospital. She had a concussion.
Yeah. And obviously Weinstein and all them kept it out of the news because I didn't hear anything.
Well,
about
not
it.
only
The
that,
studio will always trump.
They actively interfered. Like they destroyed evidence.
Yeah.
That's criminal action. Like you can't do that.
Well, when you hear about, all the allegations of, people masturbating into plants and stuff in front of women and that gets covered up, are we surprised that an accidental stunt gets covered up?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not for a second.
Well,
No.
I'm just saying, like, do you remember when they were filming Dark Knight Rises in Pittsburgh and Catwoman's motorcycle crashed into
the IMAX camera?
the IMAX camera?
That made me so.
And, we knew about that the second it happened.
Yeah.
Like, it was all over the place.
Yeah, it's true.
So for them to hide and actively squash any sort of reporting on this is just ridiculous.
Well,
Like, it's crazy.
And two, it was a time in which, not everybody had a smartphone with a camera in their hand. 2004, like that wasn't a thing.
It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't,
still,
but technology wasn't where it is right now.
Yeah,
there
Blackberries back then.
Yeah, there was no iPhone yet, and also it did take place outside of the U.S.
Yeah.
So it was probably pretty easy to brush it under the rug. But now Tarantino was able to give Uma Thurman the footage, and if anybody wants to see it, it is on her Instagram. It's not overly gory, but man, it's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch, especially because I know that shot in the movie.
Yeah, and when she's down, she's down, like she's like writhing in pain, like it's bad.
When she hits and she just kind of collapses, and then it's probably only like a minute or two, but it feels like a lifetime of people running over to try to figure out what's going on, and she's not moving.
Yeah, it's messed up. It's really messed up. But yeah, but at least this is another step of accountability in Hollywood. I would like to see this trend continue. So, hopefully it does. And fuck you, Tarantino.
Yep.
Well, and speaking of movies that are funded by Harvey Weinstein, we'll be right back with our retrospective on Kevin Smith right after this message from our friends at the Epicast Network.
Hey, yo, I'm Ed Bailey. I'm here with
Dave Bracey.
And we are the Drinking Partners Podcast on Epicast Network. Fucked it up. Make sure you check us out, man. We got the Comedy Fuel, which is really supposed to be beer fueled comedy podcast, but
Craft fuel beer potter. Craft beer fuel pot. Motherfucker, man. I'm gonna have to write that down.
What up? Craft Fuel Beer Podcast.
Yeah, craft fuel.
Craft brew filled craft beer fuel podcast. Okay. Craft brew fuel. Craft beer fuel comedy. Those are not 4 words that you say normally. All right. Craft brew knew that I was gonna fuck up. You knew. Craft Beer Fuel Comedy Podcast. All right, so Craft Beer Fuel Comedy Podcast on.
You can find us on epicastnetwork.com/partnerspod. You can find us at partnerspod on Facebook, Twitter, and IG. And you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Libsyn under Drinking Partners.
Yo, if you ain't heard and if you don't know, Drinking Partners is the crew, Epicast is the family. Make sure you check us out, man.
And we're back. Those messages from our friends over the Epicast Network, specifically the Drinking Partners podcast.
I've never partnered with them on drinking.
I feel like we
You've
need
never-
to remedy that.
Yeah.
2018
partnered
goals.
or partied?
Well,
Partnered.
I've partied. I've partied.
Party,
with them.
party.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Jealous.
I went to an Epicast party
Oh, that's right. We couldn't go, John. We were
a couple
out of town.
months ago.
They purposely didn't invite me.
No,
You were invited.
you were invited.
Don't let 'em there.
You were
out of
invited.
town.
Yeah. So definitely check them out at epicastnetwork.com. So as we mentioned at the top of the show, this week is going to be our retrospective on the work of one of the finer filmmakers of our time. One of the people who, in my opinion, kind of represents an independent filmmaker who kind of came from the gritty side of it and has really made a name for himself in Hollywood. And that is, of course, Kevin Smith.
Kevin Patrick Smith
Kevin Patrick Smith. Wow.
Mr. Smith, if you're nasty.
Wow.
from Red Bank, New Jersey.
Wow.
Jersey.
You know your shit, John. I'm very
Jersey.
excited.
I took a look into Red Bank, New Jersey. It's a nice little town. It's right on the water.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, and if you go there, it has Kevin Smith's comic book shop that you see on Comic
Oh,
Book
that's
Man.
cool. Is
Really?
that where that's
Yeah.
at? That's really cool.
Yeah.
But shouldn't we
Nice.
be silent for this whole episode and then have like one line right near the end of it, like Silent Bob style?
Ooh, I should have done that. That'd have
Yeah.
been so cool.
So, John, you did a little bit of research on this particular filmmaker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So he was born August 2nd, 1970. Let's just go way back here. And obviously he hit fame and notoriety when Miramax, with everyone's best friend Harvey Weinstein, picked up Clerks.
Rough.
But his early life, he was his mother was a stay-at-home mother, and his father was a postal worker. And as a very young kid, like he saw his father like struggle to get out of bed. He hated his career so much that he said to himself that no matter what, I'm going to love what I do,
Right.
no matter what that is. And it was age 21 that he went to. I'm trying to think of what the movie now is.
It was Slacker.
Slacker. Yes, he went to see that movie and said, "Holy shit! Like, I can do this." And I feel like we all have that feeling when we see Richard Linklater movies, right? Like, oh God, if this can get released, anything can.
There have been a couple movies that we've all seen that were just like,
I could fucking do that.
I can fucking do that. Yeah.
I could
funny.
make Boyhood. It doesn't have a plot and it's just monotonous. I just got to dedicate 12 years of my life or whatever the fuck.
For art.
For art.
Twat.
Yeah, he grew up with a Catholic upbringing, and he's kind of been wishy-washy about where he stands on it now. He says that he does go to church before the beginning and end of every film production. Now, so
That's interesting.
But his confusion about religion is kind of what brought on Dogma, which we'll talk
Great
about
movie.
later here. He did go to film school for like a week and a half. And then with a couple of connections he made, he decided, like, screw this, let's actually make a movie. And he maxed out a bunch of credit cards, got all the favors he could, and even sold the majority of his comic book collection in order to finance about $21,000 for Clerks, and the rest is history. So obviously always a big fan of film and kind of a young slacker, because I remember
Kinda.
there was a big thing with a note that one of his girlfriend's mom gave him in 1989 that says, "Kevin Smith will never be a famous writer, and I wish him well in all of his future endeavors." And he still has that note.
That's it. Oh,
He has that pinned up like above his desk, and he uses it as inspiration every day.
amazing.
Yeah. I bet that one's like, oh, crap. I should have married that pot-smoking like kid that wouldn't shut up about Star Wars. But I mean, he's an interesting guy for us to do here. Obviously, one of the reasons we're doing him is we pick filmmakers that really put themselves in the limelight. You know, like Stanley Kubrick was a brilliant filmmaker, but he never made anything about the films about himself. Even somebody like Steven Spielberg, arguably the most successful, famous filmmaker in America, not much about him. But, you know, guys like Tim Burton that we've done, you know, Quentin Tarantino, these guys almost become celebrities and kind of rock star filmmakers in themselves. And I would say nobody more than Kevin Smith. I think Kevin Smith is much of an entertainer as he is a filmmaker.
In recent years, yes.
Agreed.
I would say at the start of his career, not so much. I mean, he did always play kind of a role. He played Silent Bob in a lot of his films. But I mean, he never, like, to the extent where he is now on, like, Comic Book Men, and he does his own podcast.
And his Q&A specials.
His Q&A specials, you know, now he's become more of kind of almost, I don't know if this is negative or not, but kind of like how Michael Moore has almost surpassed his own films. I still think that Kevin Smith is mostly known for the characters he creates in his work, more so than his own persona. Not like Michael Moore has basically become, you know, the persona.
Yeah.
But I definitely see the point now where it's like he's become his own force. I just don't think it's nearly as strong as it was, you know, as other filmmakers are.
Well, it's funny with Clerks, you know, and we'll break it down a little more further, but that last line, that endearing line in the film that Silent Bob speaks, it's the first time you hear him speak the whole movie, like, you know, somebody that'll, you know, cook for you and bring you lunch, like, as a keeper, you know, and obviously I'm butchering the line, but that was actually supposed to be Jay that says
Oh,
that.
really?
You know, and somebody said, like, what if Silent Bob just speaks at that one moment? And that's the only thing he says, and it's like the most impactful line in the movie. And I think that that's when Silent Bob became an endearing character, and that's why, you know, you saw Jay and Silent Bob for what they call kind of his first 4 films that all are in that universe. You know, well, actually 5. This, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, all in that same universe. And then eventually he moved away from that. But, you know, Jay and Silent Bob, they're in every last one of those.
And Clerks too.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was later. But...
Well, he kind of came around to it again. But obviously, yeah, he became an indie darling, you know, and a lot of people said, like, oh, I think I can make a film after seeing Clerks, you know, and not to take anything away from it. I'm not in any way diminishing it. It's one of my favorite films. But I did think that. I'm like, oh, you know, he shot this in the supermarket that he worked in. You know, they did on a shoestring budget with a lot of his friends, and they were able to get distribution by, you know, clawing and scratching their way into that world. You know, it kind of opened the window that, wow, we can all make films. And it was really of that era of that Tarantino, like that snappy dialogue and that Gen X cynicism, and really it was just a movie for its time.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool about this movie is its accessibility and how it's almost more than just the sum of its parts. You know, it's more than just the story it portrays. It being on a shoestring budget, it's seeming like something that someone who wanted to make films could do. I feel like that became an entity in and of itself because, you know, the legend of Clerks and, you know, the cool trivia that you learn about it, like, it's in black and white because Kevin Smith couldn't afford to get, like, color temperature matching lights. So he had to use what he had. And since all the colors would have been really fucked up, he just threw it in black and white because the light was right. Just the color would have just, you know, looked awful. Mm-hmm. So I think like having those legends, those stories, and having those things kind of at hand with, you know, in addition to the film, you know, being good and having, you know, something to say, like John said, with the cynicism and everything, I think that that's a big part of its success as well, is the legend.
I think, you know, Kevin Smith is in the same class of filmmakers as people like Robert Rodriguez and people like Quentin Tarantino, who at the same time, I mean, Robert Rodriguez especially was basically doing exactly what Kevin Smith was doing in 1990, 1989.
He's a dirty liar.
Okay,
El Mariachi costs more than $7,000.
Really?
John thinks he's full of shit.
You really think he's full of shit?
If Clerks cost $24,000 or something like that to make,
yeah.
How did El Mariachi cost $7,000?
Well,
I don't buy it.
Rodriguez is very plain about the fact that he called in every dirty favor everybody owed him ever.
Yeah.
So I think when we look at the cash spent as opposed to the value, I think he called in a lot of favors of like, hey, so-and-so, you have access to this great location. Can I come in for free? I'm not saying that it wouldn't have cost those things, but Rodriguez was pretty plain about that.
Look, I don't mean to insult the human Red Bull can. You know, the director, the director of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, I'm sure.
You hate Rodriguez
You really
so much.
detest
You really
him, don't you?
You know, when I was 15, I thought he was the coolest guy in the world.
Oh, I thought he was a
grew up.
genius when we were in our teens.
You know, I also
still
thought
like
cotton
him.
candy was delicious when I was 8.
Here's the thing. I still like him. I still do. But, okay, if you take him at his word, El Mariachi cost $7,000. I believe it does because I've seen that movie a whole bunch of times. And let me tell you something. It's shot well and it's edited well, but you can clearly tell that it's a first-time filmmaker working on this. You know, so I'm more adept to believe him that it did cost $7,000. Now, I also think, and they are including this in that $7,000, that I think it was Miramax that picked up El Mariachi as well, if I'm not mistaken.
So. Yeah.
So, you know, I believe they also did, you know, mastering to this original film that absolutely cost more than
couple
$7,000.
of reshoots, yeah.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying reshoots. I'm just saying, you know, doing some color temperature, you know, adjustments here and there, playing with the original negatives. I mean, they had tools back in the 90s that they could to fix things like this. Not quite completely digital, but enough that they could make a $7,000 movie look like maybe twice that amount.
Right.
So I'm more apt to believe that. Now, I just look. The point of my comment was just to say that contemporaries of Kevin Smith were doing the same exact thing, and you can see the same type of Gen X, as you were saying, John, the Gen X kind of mentality in these films, where it is very much a pull yourself up by your bootstraps that eventually permeated over to people like us, where we looked at these filmmakers and said, "Look what they were able to do, having to work in an analog medium." You know, like that's the crazy thing is they were shooting on actual film.
So expensive.
Yeah.
And one thing we take for granted in this movie, one thing that I thought was so clever was that they couldn't get the grates up, you know, over the windows and doors. You know, they had a sign, "Yes, we are open." It's because they shot the movie at night.
Yeah.
And they didn't have enough lights to blast through the windows to make it look like it was daytime. It's the perfect way to get around. They wrote, you know, and you get that a lot with independent cinema. Like, we got to write around our limitations, you know.
Well, we said that during our How to Make a Short Film episode that really, if you decide that this is what you want to do, that you want to go into filmmaking, you want to make movies, that really you should not be thinking, I need to make the biggest giant blockbuster that I can ever think of, because ultimately you will be disappointed. Because there are people out there who that is all their career is. Talking to you, Michael Bay. But if you want to make
He's a music video director,
I know,
that blew somebody to get a career.
I know. But
Savage.
You know what you should be doing is just as you said. You write for what you have. He had a convenience store, and so he wrote for it.
You know, and he had mentioned that, you know, he would just riff with his buddies on all these topics, and they would say, like, why aren't these in movies, these kind of conversations, these ambling conversations?
I've told you the same damn thing.
Jedi versus Empire, you know? And
well, I told you a couple months ago, about you were telling me about your experiences working at a bar.
Yeah.
In, it was Erie, right?
Edinburgh.
So you were telling me all these crazy stories about customers that you had met while working at a bar, both of you. And I was sitting there the whole time going, this would be a fucking hilarious either movie or web series. Like the characters you were bringing up, like your former boss, I was cracking the fuck up while you were telling me these stories about him.
And it's funny because it's one of those things where if we did put it out in the world, people would be like, you took this too far. You made this up. Like, no, it actually all happened.
Yeah.
You know, like when you meet people like that, I think drawing from life it can be really interesting.
Yeah.
But, you know, I would say this is one of the first examples of, like, art house popcorn movie.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Because it's highly entertaining, but at the end of the day, it's a black and white movie about two people having an existential crisis about going nowhere in life and working menial jobs.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's something you see in France. But it's a movie about dick jokes and women having sex with corpses in back rooms and,
That's so
really
horrible.
dark. But yeah, it's about Dante and Randall. Dante works at the convenience store, and Randall works at the video store next door. And basically, the whole plot of the thing is these guys have a lot of conversations, have a lot of zany adventures, all within a day of working at these two particular businesses, and that's it. And it sounds like if you've never seen it, if you somehow haven't seen Clerks, you'd be like, oh, this doesn't sound very
Sounds
good.
kind of boring, actually.
No, it's awesome. It's like something when you describe things, like you try to describe Ric Flair. Doesn't sound very good. As Max Landis pointed out, but
or those games when you try to explain something badly. I always think those are fun. Like describe a movie as badly as you can. I always think that's fun.
Or even if you're trying to explain Super Mario Brothers. Yes. Well, you are a plumber that has to save a princess from a giant lizard, and you might be going into sewers to do it.
And chicken nuggets will kill you.
And chicken nuggets will kill you.
Little running chicken nuggets. Yeah. One thing that's nice about this film, though, is it doesn't have I would say that mark on it that a lot of these other 90s movies had, reality bites.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Ethan Hawke's character was like, oh, my dad keeps offering me these jobs. It's so stupid. I'm just want to lay on couches and not do anything. And in the 90s, you had that freedom and that seemed romantic. And I don't, but then when the economy turns to shit, you're like, fuck you, Ethan Hawke. Fuck you.
When I watch Reality Bites, and I haven't watched it in a while, and it probably would be very depressing, I just think, I'm like, you sons of bitches don't have any student loans at all.
Yeah.
It's true.
And it kills me.
It's true.
But, thankfully, this movie avoids that scar tissue. But before we move on from that, I think we have to talk about the alternate ending that almost ruined this.
What is the alternate ending?
Yeah, talk to us about it.
Well, Dante's character, who is, he's basically 50-50 main protagonist with Randall, but I would say it's more Dante's story, maybe 60-40.
I agree with that.
And he keeps saying, he gets called in on his day off, and he keeps saying, I'm not supposed to be here today. And the movie just kind of ends like it's supposed to. In the alternate ending, somebody comes in after they're already closed and shoots Dante and takes some money from the cash register, kind of trying to do that whole payoff of I wasn't supposed to be here today. And it just feels so student film.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
And thankfully Level Head saw,
right.
And then, because then we wouldn't have got Clerks too. And we wouldn't have got a man fucking a donkey.
Well, this is a moment where I wish we did have video because in your face.
I was like, and I was like, oh God, that's exactly how that.
Yep. Yep.
Oh God, the cops! I better hurry.
I mean, I love my donkey. No, but I think that, as you said, that would have been very student filmish and almost a little too pretentious. There's a lot of movies when you're in film school. We did it where everybody dies, and mainly it's because it's an easy ending.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's very hard to write an ending that doesn't just end.
Well, then he's lying on the ground, and then what you do is you Dutch angle zoom into his eye, and then there's a bunch of stock footage of farmland that's falling apart, and then it says Finn.
Yeah. But I think also if you did that, it would destroy the themes of the movie. The movie for the most part is, as you said, the existential crisis that pretty much anyone who's in their late 20s going into their 30s is going to hit. When in your head and you're younger, you're thinking, oh yeah, my life is going to be sweet. Everything's going to work out. But just like with everything, the path to, success and your dreams and everything is not a straight one. And that's what this movie really is about. It's about those curves that we all go through in our life. And those curves are goofy. Those curves are tragic. Those curves are things like, as you said, ex-girlfriend's fucking corpses in the bathroom, or having an argument about how many dicks your girlfriend sucked before you were going out with her.
Yeah.
So things like that every person has got conversations about and that are generally part of life, all distilled down into, 90 minutes.
And obviously this made him kind of an overnight, darling, but it wasn't instantaneous. He had a lot of screenings, and, it's kind of screenings where you get 10 people to show up and then maybe one homeless guy because it's warm. You know,
That was dark.
and he was thinking, okay, well, we tried. Maybe we're gonna have to pack this in. But one of the screenings had, somebody showed up, just kind of sat near the front of the row. He didn't think much of it, but this guy ended up giving him a call saying, "Hey, I saw your film. We might want to look into this. There's kind of a fresh upstart indie, circuit going around Miramax. We might want to see if you can have a meeting with the Weinsteins." And well, we all know about the Weinsteins now. It's kind of awkward. It's really kind of awkward to talk about Miramax and the Weinstein Corporation. They were successful for a lot of movies that we loved and introducing a lot of filmmakers. But now knowing what we know about Harvey, it's really awkward to talk about.
But there's more than one Weinstein, I mean, Bob didn't fuck anybody that I know of.
Not that I know of.
I mean, not yet.
Not yet.
We'll find out. I mean, but if we were going to find out about him, we would have by now.
Yeah, it would have been already out. But yeah, so Clerks pretty much started off his career. And then he did one of my favorite movies is underloved in my opinion, and that's Mallrats.
See, and it's weird because with Mallrats, I feel that kind of exposed him.
Really? You don't like Mallrats?
I'm not. Well, it's funny. It's very funny, but it's no Clerks. It's funny. I think it's a drop off, and he was given tons of money, tons of more access to everything that he needed, and newer actors. But it was, I think the problem was giving him too much of a budget.
You think so?
Yeah, it would have almost been interesting if he had to make another, not literally Clerks 2, but another movie like Clerks without, just to kind of continue that. He was clearly given, how many times am I going to say clearly? Clearly. He was given a hell of a lot of money. I mean, by that type of movie.
$6 million.
Yeah. When you're making a movie and it's I barely scraped together $20,000 and now I'm giving $6 million to make a movie.
This movie did really bad too.
It got a cult following eventually, but
I was one of the people in that cult that really got to it. But $2 million box office out of a $6 million budget. That's really bad.
Oh wow,
that's really bad.
Well, I felt like in Clerks his characters were very human, and this one kind of turned them into cartoon characters.
Oh yeah,
which I thought was strange. Well, Clerks eventually became a cartoon.
The opening of the film is introducing the characters as comic books.
Yeah.
So clearly this was very much a departure from that and making these characters seem more goofy and over the top. You've got characters like Brody, who is, the comic relief for the whole thing, but he's also kind of, similar to Dante, where his life kind of is not really proceeding forward, but he kind of revels in it. Yeah. And it isn't towards the end of the movie where he decides to finally move forward with his life. But then you also have characters like T.S., who is, more adult than everybody, but he wants to propose to his girlfriend at the moment Jaws pops out of the water, which just that seems kind of strange. I mean, I know it's a nerdy reference, but seems a little weird. And why would you break up with your girlfriend simply because they couldn't make it? That part I always thought was strange, how quickly he was able to break up with her.
Yeah. Well, and I feel that the way Clerks stands the test of time, I feel like this film is almost instantly dated.
Oh yeah, it's
a bunch of 90s slacker kids hanging around the mall playing Sega Genesis.
Yeah, it doesn't age well.
No. I love watching it. It's one of my favorite films, just because it does have all these very zany characters in these very goofy situations. Like the one character who's looking at the magic eye thing the entire movie.
The dude from My Name is Earl. I can't remember his name.
And also from Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
I want to look at the sailboat. Because apparently if you look at these magic eye things long enough, you see things.
I could never see those magic eye things.
I could.
Oh, I was so mad. Everybody else saw them. I was like, God damn it.
It took me a long time, and I didn't see every single one.
The key is you put it up towards your face, and you cross your eyes, and then you pull it away. That's the key.
I always unfocused my eyes, and then it would come out.
No, you got to look. You kind of got to cross your eyes, pull it up close to you, and pull it back, and you'll see the sailboat or whatever shit.
Sailboat.
That's all the guy wanted to see.
Amazing.
Oh, it's a schooner, you dumb fuck. It's a sailboat. A schooner is a sailboat, dummy. Yeah. So he came out with Mallrats. It didn't do very well. And then his next film was Chasing Amy.
which got a lot of flack, which is strange because Kevin Smith's brother is gay and said that the movie is very much misunderstood because sexuality is a lot more fluid than they think it is, or the people give it credit for, rather. Because in the movie, I think a lot of people were thinking that Kevin Smith's implying that all a lesbian needs is a good dick, and she realizes that she's not gay. I think the idea is that Amy is bisexual.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's misunderstood because
Well, I
it's
mean,
like 97 by
even now.
This was 97.
Yeah.
Even now, bisexuality, I think, is largely misunderstood. You see a lot of articles on bisexual celebrities who struggle with the erasure because they're dismissed, by the heterosexual community, but they're actually sometimes quite attacked in the gay community because they're shunned almost, for having something a little bit different about them, than just plain gay or straight,
Yeah. I never really was a big fan of Chasing Amy. I mean, it was never kind of like, it was kind of an in-between of Goofy, Mallrats and Clerks, with more leaning towards the Clerks than anything.
It's like he put his first two movies together.
Yes.
And this is what we got.
Yeah.
And he started dating Joey Lawrence Adams. Well, no, Joey Lauren Adams. And they dated for quite a bit. And I think like when they broke up, he actually got together with his
current wife.
His current wife, which as he has freely admitted is way too hot for him. But
I tend to agree with him.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an okay film in my opinion. I mean, it does introduce a lot of the aspects of this universe that we see in later films that you might be more familiar with. So, like Blunt Man and Chronic is introduced in this film.
Right.
You also have,
which is Jay and Silent Bob's comic book.
Yes. So, I mean, there are a lot of those aspects that are introduced. The idea of Holden McNeil and Banky, that come back again in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. They're introduced in this film. So,
well, and there's an old saying like, write what you know. And in all of these movies so far, we have stoners, we have pop culture references, we have rambling conversations. Like, these are probably all things that the scene in Mallrats when Jason Lee grabs the Sega Genesis controller while his girlfriend's trying to talk to him, and he's playing like NHL 94 or something.
I had that.
Yeah.
I had that same one. I saw that when I was watching. I was like, I fucking had that game.
And and it's just this rambling conversation the two of them are having. He's not really paying attention. I'm like, this probably just happened to Kevin Smith.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? And he
probably.
just wrote it into his movie. And so we kind of get, for as pretentious as it sounds, we get kind of a cinema verite here, and we have the auteurship. I think you're
really reaching in and pulling out those MFA words, aren't you?
I know. Hey. When you're seeing a Kevin Smith movie, you don't always know when you're seeing a Steven Spielberg movie. If you'd never seen a Steven Spielberg movie somehow, and somebody sat you down and showed you Jurassic Park and then showed you Schindler's List, you're like, "This is the same guy," But when you're seeing a Kevin Smith movie, for better or worse, and a lot of his continuing themes that happen. And a lot of them on purpose, like Jay and Silent Bob are in all of them. A lot of overlapping characters, which eventually when we'll get to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, that's really kind of a, it's the Infinity War of Kevin Smith's movies. Like,
it seriously
everything
is.
comes to a head and comes full circle on that. But before we get there, at the time, and I think possibly of his entire career, his most controversial movie, Dogma, because religious people got a stick up their ass. It's actually a movie that's pro religion.
I would say it is. It's definitely not anti-religion. I would say that Dogma, is more about spirituality than a specific religion. I think that's the problem that, especially mocking Catholics in this. But I don't. Whenever I see this, I don't say it's anti-religion. I say it's just pro-spirituality.
Right. And yeah, I mean, there were so many protests and people. I remember seeing a clip online that somebody showed me of Kevin Smith joining one of the protests of his own film, and nobody knew he was there.
Wow.
And if you don't know what Kevin Smith by that point looks like, and he's there protesting with you. Maybe you don't have much of a leg to stand on because maybe you don't even know what the film's about. You just heard, oh, it teases God and Jesus and religion, and so therefore we have to protest. When the film is a very clever send-up of religious conventions, and as you know, Kevin Smith has often said, it's a film he made to deal with his like conflicted relationship with his religion growing up and where he was at the time with it. Of course, I'm trying to go between different pages here, but the main female character in the film, I imagine, is a female version of Kevin Smith because
Linda
she's
Florentino.
I could see that.
Bethany.
where she's losing her religion.
Oh my god,
That's all we can do.
that's amazing.
We're gonna get sued.
Any more and you'll get sued.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a very much a departure from him, especially where he goes after this. Obviously,
Interesting to note.
Yeah.
Filmed in Pittsburgh.
Yes, he did a lot of films, but Zach
Filmed
and Miri
in
was done
Pittsburgh.
He did, yeah. Zach and Miri.
Hosers.
No, he didn't film that here, did he?
I think he might have.
Yoga Hosers?
I might be completely wrong about that.
Terrible movie.
But but you know, yeah, this movie is a brief departure. I mean, we still have Jay and Silent Bob. We still have gross out humor. But I mean, this is a movie about fallen angels and religion, and it's just wait, what happened to movies about guys in malls and smoking pot? Like, you know, I mean, it's still the same, but a little bit of a departure for him, which is, you know, kind of nice to see.
Yeah, yeah, and with all of these films, the one thing that I think Kevin Smith has mastered is the ability to create very complex characters that, you know, are memorable for the most part. You know, every type of Kevin Smith movie I could think of, even though Jason Lee plays, you know, a couple different characters, every single time he's in a Kevin Smith film, it's a character that is more than just the surface stuff. You know, he actually has a bit of a backstory, and you remember him. Like, for instance, in Dogma, Jason Lee plays Azrael, who's the fallen angel demon guy who's kind of behind all of the shenanigans that are ensuing.
Yeah.
And you find out that he's really pissed off not just at God, but he's pissed off at the devil too, because he's a demon, because he was an artist who didn't want to go to war. And so his penance for not going to war was to get sent to hell. You know, so it's more than just, oh, he's a normal bad guy. There's more to it than that. You almost feel bad for him in some degree.
And this film has, I'd say, possibly the most memorable scene in any Kevin Smith movie in my mind, even more than the donkey fucking, is the scene where Matt Damon and Ben Affleck go to the boardroom of movies.
Oh my God.
And they just say all these things. It might as well have been the boardroom from Miramax.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
He's like, oh, you went to a country to fuck a 10-year-old boy, and you've been cheating on your wife who has cancer, you know, with prostitutes, and just running down the list of all these things, all these, you know, folks have done, and then they just mow them the fuck down.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was, yeah, well written, well paced. Like, that's probably my favorite, you know, Kevin Smith scene. And then we go onto, I'd say, kind of a mess of a movie.
Jay and Silent Bob? You think it's a mess?
Well, the problem is that he has Ben Affleck playing a character and then himself. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's an overlap with characters, you know, because that's what happens sometimes in those circumstances. You know, I watched this again very recently, and it's a lot funnier when you're 17 years old.
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, some of the stuff is still very funny. Mark Hamill saying, "Don't fuck with the Jedi Master, son," is always going to
That's never
is
gonna not
awesome.
be funny. It's always gonna be funny.
But yeah, a lot of the
cock knocker.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's still funny, but I don't know if it holds up as well as it did when I was, you know, that running with testosterone and thought
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it is more of a return to the goofiness of Mallrats, you know,
Yeah.
but it's at a time when I think it probably was more appreciated than in 1995. You know, I mean,
Right.
this came out like in, what did it come out? 2001. Okay. So like you had movies like Dude, Where's My Car and shit like that were coming out that kind of tapped into that early 2000 frosted tip bro type stuff. and this type of humor was really the only thing he had at that time. So
Yeah.
I get it.
And Lane, how do you feel about Jay's relationship in the movie?
I mean,
I figured you'd have something to say here.
it's just tough because you can see it in a lot of these movies, not just in this one, where Kevin Smith is trying, but I think that a lot of times, like, women are just kind of objectified or trophified, in the movies, like, and it's not super overt all the time, which is almost more damaging because, we talk about internalized misogyny and, things that happen on a societal level that, where people feel things and we don't even understand why they occur. And I think that if anything, that's his main crime is just, because like you guys were talking about chasing Amy. I mean, like, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
I think the idea of objectifying and making like women out to be a quest is never a good idea. And and it feels like that in a lot of these movies.
Well, I would say the bigger problem is that Jay is such a revolting human being. Like, we all laugh at him because he's a movie character, but there's no reason on God's green earth that she, the main female,
Shannon Elizabeth
Justice, should ever end up with this man.
Right.
Although it did give us boo-boo kitty fuck.
Right, which is amazing. But
sometimes I call you.
But too, I mean, the underlying message is that he gets a girl that hot because he deserves it, because he's entitled to it. Like I said, that's the
She's a trophy.
That's the harmful messaging underneath that, though. Like he earned it. Mm-hmm. Almost, and that's never good.
But he doesn't even earn it. He doesn't learn anything.
But that's what I'm saying.
Really
but I'm saying it's like that, like very subtle messaging that every man deserves a hot woman. That's the more damaging message that it gives. And Kevin Smith is a lot of things, but he's not a feminist. Not really.
Not really.
I wouldn't say he's the enemy, though.
I don't either, but I'm just saying
he's not Michael Bay.
He could do a lot better. Most men could do better.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say it's weaker compared to his more recent films, in my opinion.
Okay.
With the exception of Yoga Hosers. It's a bad movie.
But
I sat through that.
Something I don't want us to forget was, and there's a fascinating documentary on this. It was around this time that he was optioned to write Death of Superman.
Oh, yeah, this is such a crazy story.
I think this actually came around the time of Chasing Amy. And he wrote, a script for it. And if you ever have the chance to watch An Evening with Kevin Smith, the first one, he talks about going to I think it was Peter Gruber's house.
Oh, Christ.
And we talked about him when we talked about Batman.
Yeah.
And what Tim Burton. And this guy's just a psychopath.
Fair enough.
He talks and acts like a psychopath, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and I don't want to ruin anything of it, but well, fuck it, I'm gonna ruin it. Because the best thing is that he wanted Superman to fight a giant spider for no fucking reason.
Of course.
He's like, I don't want to see him wear that stupid. Sorry for this language, but this is what Peter Gruber said. I don't want to see him wearing that faggoty cape.
Oh my god!
What?
I don't want to see him fly. And at the end of the movie, I want him to fight a giant spider.
So you want Batman?
Sort of, with a giant spider.
But he has a cape. Batman has a cape.
But that's what I'm saying is that he wants Batman.
But
I don't want you to fly. I want you to fly a giant spider. So Batman. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But eventually it ended up going through like 6 or 7 other rewrites. And, Kevin Smith's like, oh, damn, that would have been a cool opportunity because he's such a comic book fan. But he said that, a few years later, for some reason, he bought a ticket to Wild Wild West, a movie that was produced by Peter Gruber. And there was that fucking spider.
Oh, shit.
The giant mechanical spider.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because he just wanted a spider so badly, he would shoehorn it into any movie. And Wild Wild West was the movie that ended up getting it.
I bet you he jacks off to like spider porn.
Ew. Oh my God. What even is that? Oh. I just imagine eggs hatching as the porn.
Yeah.
I just want to vomit everywhere.
But he, much like Patton Oswalt and Bruce Valanche and other folks, Joss Whedon, is he punched up a lot of scripts during this time too.
Okay.
He was given a lot of scripts to either rewrite or to add jokes to. So kind of keeping busy here with his own films.
Sure.
And these kind of side projects. And this is where I'd say after he's gotten what I would call his Red Bank trilogy. I know there's actually an official
The View Askew.
View Askew trilogy or quadrilogy. Then we kind of get into it was 5 films. What the fuck am I talking about? What is 5? What is that? I'm gonna say 5 ilogy.
Quintology?
I don't know.
At this
Sounds
point,
right,
after Jay and Silent Bob, you had a total of 5 films. So that's before we get to Clerks 2.
Right.
But after Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he made arguably, in my opinion, probably one of his worst movies.
Yeah, he starts to have a steady decline here.
Yeah, in 2004, he comes out with Jersey Girl.
Well, before he does that, the evening with Kevin Smith that I mentioned, we should really kind of mention that because in terms of, we're talking about a retrospective of Kevin Smith as a filmmaker, it's also Kevin Smith, the entertainer, and that was one of 5 Q&A, panel discussions that he did in front of live audiences. And I mean, I've watched a lot of these. I don't know if I've ever watched one from beginning to end, but I've seen clips from all 5 of them online, and there are times where I'm in tears laughing at his stories. And I'd say this is when Kevin Smith becomes as much Kevin Smith a celebrity as he does Kevin Smith the filmmaker.
No, I think that's fair assessment.
And do you guys think that, just for the sake of argument, I know we all love Kevin Smith and we don't want to start anything, but is this a bit self-aggrandizing, a little bit excessive for him to kind of turn himself into, a personality like this instead of just a filmmaker? No, I don't think so. Primarily because he's got the films to back it up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You look at people like Michael Moore, part of the reason that they're able to be the persona that they are is because they do have the films to back it up.
Yeah.
A lot of Michael Moore's documentaries, are controversial, and they do, work, you could say, to support his persona. I think with Kevin Smith, though, his films are as much about him as they are about the narratives he's creating.
Be on the lookout for our filmmaker retrospective later this year on Michael Moore. Funny you mention that.
but I just feel that he is able to back up his persona with good work. I mean, with the exception of Jersey Girl.
Yeah, I would say let's get back to
let's get to that.
Which I think is his worst film.
Oh God, it's so bad.
And I don't understand why this guy's got such a boner for Ben Affleck. Like, I know
it's his buddy.
Yeah,
it's like one of his best friends.
Yeah,
but
God help him.
Well, and this is kind of jumping ahead, but when Ben Affleck got the Batman job, Kevin Smith was one to say, "Oh yeah, the suit and everything looks great. It looks like fucking Batman."
It's weird. I've never really been able to see any of the Batmans under the cowl except Ben Affleck. I'm like, wait, if I saw that Batman, I'd be like, wait, that's Bruce Wayne. That's your face, dude. I can still see you under that.
He is, by all accounts, the worst at keeping his identity a secret, since everyone in the Justice League knows that he's fucking Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Although I tell you, I still think he was on paper a great Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne has to be so swarmy and Ben Affleck just naturally is.
Yeah.
Like Christian Bale seems charming, and it's like, I don't really buy him as this like jock ass. No,
oh man.
Enjoy that next week.
Yeah.
But as this, idiot that he's pretending to be, like, I'd buy it from Ben Affleck. I would walk by that Bruce Wayne and be like, what an asshole. I would never believe he was Batman. But anyways, what were we talking about? Oh yeah.
Jersey Girl. Very forgettable.
Yeah.
Not very good.
And it's weird because I'd say this is where he starts to have a steady decline. And let me try to pull up my IMDb here. Because what's next on his?
Well, after Jersey Girl, he gets back in form with Clerks 2 in 2006.
I would say when you had a film that bombed like that, and this is really the first film that not only just bombed, because like he's still, even with Mallrats and that's still indie filmmaking by today's standards.
It always found a cult following though.
Yeah,
like that's the thing.
Exactly. And so this is his first film that was just critically panned and audience panned, and he probably freaked out.
He probably did. And he took about 2 years of a break to get back to form, and he came out with Clerks 2 in 2006, which in my opinion definitely builds upon, Clerks 1, which is what a good sequel should do.
Now, I don't want to. I'm not doing apples to apples. I'm doing apples to oranges here. But isn't doing Clerks 2 kind of like doing Citizen Kane 2?
I mean, it's definitely apples to oranges.
To a point.
I'll give you that. But yeah, I mean, like, it is a little dicey to kind of go back and rehash something that did so well, because you're never going to capture that lightning in a bottle again. You're just riding on the name, you're riding on the notoriety. I hate to say this, but it is kind of a gimmick, because you're getting people hooked to coming rather than focusing on maybe making the best story that you can,
Yeah, I will say that Clerks 2 lacks a little bit of the depth of the first movie. And I think that's what you're kind of getting at is the first Clerks is, I'd say, more about Dante's existential crisis than it is about the comedy. The comedy is kind of a side note to it.
And the idea, I don't know if you guys kind of got the sense that I kind of felt like Dante would eventually have gotten his shit together. We were just kind of at a moment in his life when he was at a crossroads. The fact that he's working at movies like 15 years later.
11.
Yeah, 11.
It doesn't feel right.
11 years later.
It doesn't really feel right.
Nearing like 37 years old. And
now, that one I didn't revisit. Do I remember hating that? That was within our relationship.
Well, I didn't see it with you. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I saw it with my buddy Matt at the movies and laughed my ass off. I didn't think it was...
We were in college, though, right?
Like a lot of Kevin Smith movies, I didn't think it was very good, but I thought it was hilarious. It was 2006, so yes, we were in college.
I like it. I mean, there are, as I said, that's more comedy than it is the drama, and ultimately, like, at this, like, with this movie, if you haven't seen Clerks 2, go and watch it. But Dante eventually comes to the idea that he should just buy the quick stop. Randall tells him, just buy the quick stop and operate yourself. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you think, if you were already on that trajectory, that that's what you would be doing anyway? Like,
yeah,
that's the one caveat that I never quite understood. I'm like, you were clerk beginning, and wouldn't you eventually just buy the quick stop? I know it burnt down, but that part I never understood that.
I know it kind of seems like he's turning into Rhinestone Elvis here.
Rhinestone Elvis.
Like, I'm gonna go to Vegas.
Oh shit!
I thought you were like not literally referencing Elvis for a second, but then I realized you were.
Yeah, no, but like, I'm gonna go to Vegas and just sing all my old hits, and everybody's gonna come and they're just gonna remember the good times, even though I'm not what I used to be.
Yeah,
and it feels like that's what Clerks 2 is. Once again, hysterically funny. If it wasn't Clerks 2, I think I would even like it more. If it wasn't just a sequel to Clerks.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's an expectation.
If it was about two guys that worked at a fast food restaurant, I'd be like, this is pretty good. Just call it Movies. And don't call them Dante and Randall.
But it is, I mean, it's a very funny movie, for, at least in my opinion. I think it's very funny. Like Pillow Pants. Oh, God.
It's a little demon that lives in
my girlfriend's vagina. And she told you that?
And then I think this is very interesting. The next film on his filmography, Zack and Miri Make a Porno. Very good movie. Here's why it didn't do well. Because they couldn't get a lot of distribution, posters, TV spots, advertising, because the word porno is in the title.
Yeah.
How backwards are we?
It's very fucked up. And honestly, if you go onto Netflix and you look it up, because that's where I've seen it, it's not called Zack and Miri Make a Porno. It's just called Zack and Miri. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, see, I only really, I mean, I saw it originally, but when I saw it on cable, I thought it was just edited.
No, it's called Zack and Miri, and that's done specifically because of the bullshit. And porno is not a dirty word.
It's a type of film.
It's a type of movie.
It's not like they said Zack and Miri make a fuck film. I can understand. We got to censor that a little bit.
Yeah. But it's just incredibly disheartening to see that, unfortunately, studios and distribution that, I mean, at this time, this is 2008, they still had some power. We didn't really have streaming to the full extent that we're at now.
This would have been awesome if they just released it on Netflix.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
which they
Oh,
could have
yeah.
done today.
That'd
you
been
have.
perfect.
I mean, now you have a series like a series called The End of the Fucking World, which is hilarious. Have you seen that one?
I've heard of it.
Me
Oh,
too.
it's great.
I'm always 3 years too late on everything for people.
Oh, it's really
I just saw
good.
Crimson Tide. Wait, what? That movie came out in like 95,
Yeah, but anyway, you have a series like that clearly in its titling is it's got offensive words in it. But this is kind of minor. And the movie's not really even about the porno itself. It's about the relationship of these two people. The porno is really just kind of a story element. It's not really the main focus of it.
Well, there's a movie coming out with auteur Jonathan Cena.
Oh, dear God.
Which I saw the trailer and he wasn't in it, but then I was just told I couldn't see him. But it's called Cock Blockers. And they put a rooster on the poster. Just, it's the bird. How can you make a movie called Cock Blockers and not Zach and Miri make a porno?
I don't know.
It's an excellent question.
It's also 2018 or 2018. So I mean, this was 2008. A little bit different time.
It's true.
And I remember, so this film didn't do well, and I remember Kevin Smith was really broken up about it, and he was like, not only did my movie not work, I destroyed Seth Rogen's career, for a period of time. Like, not really true.
Not really.
I mean, he took a little bit of dive for a little bit, but I mean, this is the first non-bankable Seth Rogen movie in quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, he came back.
Oh, yeah. Definitely came back.
He came back with Knocked Up. But, I mean, this movie, filmed entirely in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Entirely in Pittsburgh.
There's that scene
Pittsburgh
on the incline. They shot out at what was
Ralph's
at the time?
Army Surplus.
Consol Energy Center.
Oh, I forgot about Army Surplus. I love that place.
Shot all in Monroeville.
One of our friends worked on it. Our friend Chris worked on it.
Yeah.
And he said that Seth Rogen was so cool and so nice, and they like he would have like crew guys come in and just like they'd play video games like in his trailer and stuff.
Yeah.
Thought that was cool.
Very cool.
Apparently, Elizabeth Banks was a little standoffish. He didn't say she was a bitch, but like
she
was not as approachable as Seth Rogen was. Yeah,
yeah.
You weren't going into Elizabeth Banks's trailer to play video games.
Well, I mean, I don't know that I would blame Elizabeth Banks for not inviting a bunch of strangers into her trailer.
Yeah, that's probably not the best example.
No,
but you know
not.
the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I mean, too, like people can be shy. I think that like that's something that you forget, like, or that just because someone's an actor doesn't mean that they're necessarily all that extroverted.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'll give her the B of the D on this one, but yeah, I mean, I heard Seth Rogen was really cool, and our friend who worked on it said it was a really good experience, like just all around, like it was just a good vibe and whatnot. So
Yeah.
But then we get well, before we even get into this, I think it was also around the time that Kevin Smith got kicked off a plane for being too fat.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous.
That's right.
And I won't understand that story. I don't think ever, because it was like 2010. And like Twitter was a thing, but it was like mostly something that celebrities used, I feel.
Yeah.
But I was late to Twitter, so I could be wrong about that. But like they were saying a bunch of things to him about like the safety of the passengers, and they didn't think that he, should be on the plane, but he had already buckled himself in without needing a seatbelt extender. And he was already like seated by the time they like went to go ahead and like kick him off. And I think part of their problem was like, oh, well, the armrests aren't down. And like when he went to the plane, the armrests were up. Like sometimes people leave them up.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't go down. They just weren't down. And so he was already safely in it. And it was weird because, even the issue, like the, what is it? The statement. That's the word I wanted. The statement that it was Southwest Airlines. And the statement that they had made said, like, he's been known to order 2 seats, like to buy 2 seats on a plane. I think just probably for comfort level.
What the fuck does it matter?
If you can afford to. But on this flight, like he had taken an early flight. I can't remember if he was going to Burbank or from Burbank. But he had found an earlier Burbank flight and he was able to get on, but he hadn't bought 2 seats. But they made him like get off with like, and they gave him like $100 voucher for like his inconvenience or whatever. But he then took another Southwest airline flight home. No problem.
Yeah.
Again, no extra seat, no seatbelt extender. He didn't need one, and it was funny. Like his tweets are just like a hailstorm of rage, or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like tweeting at them and, all of his like followers and stuff were super pissed. But it was funny because he saw a guy on the flight that was heavier than him. That probably needed like a seatbelt extender or something to that effect. And he caught the guy's eye. And the guy just had this look on his face, like, please don't tell, please don't tell, please don't call me out. And, you know, and Kevin Smith, like, he didn't say anything until, like, after it was over, like, in his tweets, you know, saying, like, I would never call out. I think he said I would never call out a fellow fatty, which I don't really like that. But he said, like, you know, I would never throw anybody else under the bus. So,
well, he's very open in his, like, self-derision.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he has, like, a YouTube video series called Fat Man on Batman.
Yep.
You know, and you know, in every one of his movies, like they say how fat, you know, Silent Bob is, and you know, so he's very aware, I think, of his body size, and it's one of those things like I'm gonna make fun of myself so other people don't.
Like Fat Amy in Pitch Perfect.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So it's interesting. He rolled with it really well. I mean, he did go after them on Twitter for quite a while, but he did say, you know, like, I'm really hard to embarrass. And he referenced Jersey Girl training of some kind for that. Like, said, like, you know, his feelings aren't hurt easily or something like that. Maybe he just mean Girl. Maybe he just meant like how badly it was received, you know.
Well, to kind of go back to Jersey Girl, a lot of people are calling that Gigli too.
Oh.
And he was so bothered by that he purposely tried to cut Jennifer Lopez out of the movie.
No.
And to the fact where she's only in it for like 4 or 5 minutes just to like, so people didn't compare it to Gigli.
No, so sad.
But yeah, I think I tried to avoid it. I mean, I did want to bring that up, but I mean, let's be honest, I was trying to avoid his involvement in the movie Cop Out.
Yeah.
A movie that makes House
Very
Party 2.
strange
choice for him.
This movie makes House Party 2 look like House Party 3.
Well, this one and the
or
film
House Party 4. Shut the fuck up.
well, this one and the film after it are vast departures from the type of movies that he's made prior.
Yes.
You know,
that is
buddy
true.
cops movies are not really his thing.
Well,
you know,
what's interesting here is that this is the first movie that he didn't have any involvement in the writing whatsoever.
Okay.
And he really just made this movie to finance his next project, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, Cop Out is a disaster. And it's funny, he had a very tumultuous relationship with Bruce Willis working on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, they had worked together before this on Live Free or Die Hard, the fourth fucking Die Hard movie.
Because we needed a fourth Die Hard movie.
You know, Die Hard with a Vengeance is awesome.
It is.
Just left it there. Perfect trilogy. Perfect trilogy. 2's a little shitty, but perfect trilogy. But, you know, and they had a great relationship because, once again, Kevin Smith was punching up the script for Live Free or Die Hard because he plays a character in the movie, so he's already on set, you know, working on the script. And Bruce Willis was loving the changes, and they sent him over to the studio. And the studio wasn't feeling him.
Yeah.
And so Bruce Willis was like, well, let me get him on the phone. And he's just, you know, he's hearing their complaints and, like, their issues with it. He's like, and then he pauses. He says, just out of curiosity, who's your backup to play John McClane? He's like, that's what I thought. Thank you for greenlighting the changes. Goodbye.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, shit.
Balls of steel.
And, you know, and he's like, I don't understand. We had a great relationship on that set. And as soon as I tried directing him on Cop Out, their relationship just fell apart. And I mean, there was a huge, I don't want to say Twitter feud because I don't even know if Bruce Willis is on Twitter. But at least, you know, a media war between the two of them. And once again, it added to another one of Kevin Smith's live shows where he talked about his, you know, relationship with Bruce Willis and how it just kind of fell apart. And Bruce Willis sounds like a dick, which I hate to say because I love John McClane and I love a lot of his movies.
I don't know him. I mean, I don't know. He plays dicks.
Yeah.
You know?
He was Bruno the Kid. I mean,
I know, but I'm just saying he kind of plays it. You're hoping you're getting Hudson Hawk, but most of the time you're getting, you know, douchebag McDoucherson.
You're hoping you're getting the Last Boy Scout, but you know,
you're getting. Yeah. I mean, I think Hudson Hawk is an underrated classic.
Interesting.
Ooh,
We might have to throw that.
Terrible underrated classic, but classic nonetheless.
But this is where he gets really indie, and I don't know if it's because he's had a sling of failures or what between Zack and Miri and, you know, Jersey Girl, but he makes Red State, which does not seem at all like him.
No.
And might be his best film.
Yeah.
wow, that was bold.
Yeah.
You might not be wrong.
I would say this one I think is probably his best film.
Yeah,
I really do. I mean, if you think of Clerks as raw, undistilled talent, and you have a career that spans 20 years, and then you get to this film, which has that distilled talent now in something that it didn't originally start out to be. There's no humor in Red State.
No.
It is very much, and I mean, maybe it's because we live in Trump universe, more telling now than it did in 2011. But it's very visceral and very intense to watch, because this isn't, even though it's fictionalized, this stuff happens for real. You look at things like Waco, Ruby Ridge, things where you have extremists who are homegrown.
Yeah.
This
Terrifying.
is very much a real picture of that.
Of course.
Yeah, and just this take on fundamentalist, xenophobics, and you could any focus you want to put in there. But yeah, Brian, as you said, it doesn't really have any comedy to it. It's a complete departure for Kevin Smith. It's funny how we mentioned, he was had his mark on all of his movies. This one kind of stands out. I wouldn't have known this was Kevin Smith.
I didn't know it was Kevin Smith originally.
Well,
Exactly.
The weird thing is, I went to see it because it was a Kevin Smith movie, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is different."
Yeah.
This is like a little off the beaten path here for
Right.
him. The ending does. I won't ruin the ending for you if you haven't seen it, but it does fall apart a little bit. It meanders and kind of has to explain itself.
Yeah.
But it's still, a high quality movie, and it's interesting because he kind of continued on that independent thing with Tusk and Yoga Hosers, and here we are. Good night, everybody. Follow us on Twitter. Oh no, we should probably talk about these.
I mean,
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't really care for Tusk, and I saw his segment in Holidays, and I thought that was pretty good. Yoga Hosers, holy shit. Yeah. It's like, okay, I get it. You wanted to make a movie with your daughter in it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Get it.
Robert Rodriguez already made Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and we saw how that went. So, yeah. But yeah, so just to kind of wrap it up, let's kind of talk about him as a filmmaker, like in terms of his structure. He's a very simplistic filmmaker because his movies they're almost plays, I would say.
Oh, yeah,
because
so
they're all
much
about dialogue and characters interacting with each other. So you get a lot of lockdown shots. You get a lot of simple cuts, a lot of back and forth conversation over the shoulder kind of stuff. Like, there's nothing extravagant about his filmmaking, but there's nothing wrong with that. As a filmmaker, I try to keep things simple myself. But what do you guys make of his style and his structure?
I would agree with that. I would say that the dialogue element does almost give it kind of a play feel. Some of the movies are really quiet, and some of them are much, much bigger, But at the end of the day, I think like he does try to go for the human element and for like the real experience of life, and he does try to get at universal things that everyone can relate to, especially in Clerks and Dogma, when you're really trying to figure something out that you can't put down on paper or work out like a math problem, you know what I mean, like when you're figuring out like the big questions, like where is my life going, like in Clerks, what am I doing with my life, or how do I reconcile my feelings about faith and spirituality and religion, like in Dogma, the questions are very large. So I think that keeping that simpler style, like you said, John, I agree. And I think that that's why, because sometimes the subject matter can be bigger and kind of like that mentality of like, how am I not succeeding? You see that again, like in Zack and Miri, or in Clerks too, like, how am I still not making this work? Those are a lot of what the subject matter is. And I see that time and time again.
Yeah. I mean, for me, just to kind of play off of what you guys both said, I think he is tapping into, conversations that we all have, fears that we all have, but doing it in a way that doesn't feel preachy. In my opinion, Clerks is honestly the most preachy of his films. And that is mainly just because, as I said before, that's raw undistilled talent. But as he's grown as a filmmaker and as he's grown as a writer, you see him find a way to conquer these very big topics, in a way that the audience can understand. He uses humor at times. He uses controversial elements at times, but it doesn't feel to me like we talk about Dogma. Even though that movie on the surface is blasphemy to Catholics, I can watch it and go, this is actually mostly about spirituality.
Sure.
And answering those big questions. But at the same time, he's also throwing in comments on our society, comments on our pop culture, our obsession over fandom. That is a big thing in his particular films, that we all kind of subscribe to a specific tribe of fandom, be it Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. I mean, Clerks 2 has that whole famous bit where you've got Randall who's talking about there's only one trilogy and one return, and that's of the Jedi, not of the Return of the King. And you could say, well, that's just a throwaway joke. But if you think about it, our podcast is built on fandom.
Yeah.
It's built on nerdom. And we look at a movie like the films of Kevin Smith, and we can see our own fandoms and our own, specific elements of our society reflected in it. And it's really interesting to watch.
Well, you see kind of what, I should say in my research that I've done, he's had, Jay and Silent Bob get a reboot, Clerks 3, Mallrats 2, like all these projects, and they all just kind of fall into development hell. And I'm not sure he should just be playing his hits so much, but he's also talked about retiring. Do you guys think that he's reached a point now where it's kind of best to leave it be? Like, make sure you can still catch those flies on the day you retire, those fly balls in outfield instead of having to hit you in the head?
No, I don't think so. I honestly, I think it would be very funny to see Kevin Smith go after the, you could say it, the heroification, the superheroification of Hollywood, as well as the constant reboots and franchises.
That would be a great
that
film vehicle.
Proliferate our entire entertainment industry.
Totally.
Because I think if there's anyone who could do it, it would be him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and two, I mean, like, how can you quantify that? Like, how can you really decide when someone has no longer has something to say? I can't make that judgment.
Right.
So Kevin Smith, is he more of a personality or is he more of a filmmaker?
I feel like it's Batman and Bruce Wayne. Like, he's both in some measure at all the time. It's like a yin yang. Like, he's got each elements of each no matter what.
I'm going to disagree with you on that analogy because I don't think there really is a Bruce Wayne. I think there's only Batman.
Okay.
Oh, you're pulling a Superman there.
Goddamn nerd.
No, when Batman...
I actually think he has a good point. I'm just mad at how nerdy it is. No, okay. So, I mean, like, then fine. We'll leave Batman out of it.
Bruce Wayne died the night his parents died.
and the Batman rise.
God, you guys are the worst. But yeah, I mean, like, it's like a yin yang. No matter, like, what part of, the filmmaker he is, he's still a little bit of the personality. If he's the personality, he's the personality because he was a filmmaker, you know? The two, you can't separate them out,
And here's a tough question. Because he never made a film, this is arguable, but he never made a film up to the quality of Clerks or as popular or as appreciated as Clerks. Was that just because that film was so great? Or when he was given budgets and studio backing, did that expose him?
I don't think so.
I think that's an interesting question, though. I think I do think, like I said earlier, the real success of Clerks is what it represents. An indie filmmaker who did a good job and then got really fucking lucky. Like, it becomes legend. It's more than really the sum of its parts. It's more than what it actually is. I think, most of what I've seen from Kevin Smith, not being overly feminist aside, I do think he's a good human being. And I think that he deserved to have a vehicle to continue on, to say more things and to make more films. And, what a wonderful problem to have. Like, did I peak at my first movie because it's so awesome and it did so well? If you never live up to that first amount, maybe you do get lucky, and sometimes things just come together perfectly. Maybe that's what Clerks was. It all effing worked out. Sometimes that happens, like, in a theater production when like tech rehearsals were a mess, but somehow on opening night it's just magic. Maybe he did experience just film magic.
I don't think he necessarily peaked. I don't think he was exposed. I feel that Clerks is him writing what he knows. That is very much a film about himself as it is about Dante and Randall.
Agreed.
So if you want to think about it that way, Clerks is probably his most honest film, his most true to life film, his most autobiographical film. But that isn't to say that, Mallrats isn't either, or Dogma isn't, or Zack and Miri. They're just different aspects of his life, rather than simply the existential crisis that we all kind of face at the end of our 20s and as we grow older.
I think one of the problem is, and I run into this too, is that when you use shock value humor, there's only so far you can go before you almost become a self-parody yourself.
Yeah.
Like, Clerks 1 had a lot of humor, like, how many dicks did you suck? And, and then when Randall's calling in all those porno titles while the little kids are, like, really kind of low-level shock value. But when you get to Clerks 2, I mean, there's a reason he's got somebody fucking a donkey in the movie, and they're talking about little monsters and pussies. What if we make Clerks 3, are they just going to have, like, full frontal, like, anal sex? Like, how far is he going to have to go? And how far do you go before you just end up becoming almost a self-parody of yourself?
Let me tell you something. If he didn't make Red State, I would agree with you. But he made Red State. He made a movie that was a return to a very serious type of drama that you wouldn't think someone who made a movie a couple years ago about fucking a donkey could make.
How many times does that come up tonight?
So I mean, I think that's a pretty good picture of everything,
Yeah. Well, just to kind of wrap up, where do you guys think, what's Kevin Smith's legacy?
I think there we will see more of him, the personality, the entertainer, the things that he's touched. And I mean, kind of like how he's brought like fandom and nerd culture to the forefront and made it okay, for people to like kind of revel in what they enjoy. I mean, that's a pretty damn good legacy.
I hope that he makes films and continues to make movies that speak more to his own personal experiences.
Yeah, that's
and are less about the shock value and more about the substance. I think he will. I really do.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say, I think with Kevin Smith, you get independent filmmaking that's approachable to people to understand that, film can be for everybody. And, before we had the equipment that almost, anybody could make a film, even if they had a basic understanding of the process. You look at, lots of guys that work for Roger Corman, Jack Nicholson, Francis Ford Coppola, Dennis Hopper. You didn't really see a lot of those Roger Corman movies because they were, they played in sporadic theaters around the country. You didn't see what got them to The Godfather. What got filmmakers like, Bogdanovich to where he ended up. You only saw The Godfather. You think, that's unattainable because I can't just make Godfather out of the gate. Like, how does he make Godfather? He didn't really. We just didn't see these movies, and they weren't celebrated the way Clerks was. So I would say his legacy is as much about the art he created. I think it's just as much about the fact that he created the art.
Yeah.
And it kind of says, like, here's a new group of filmmakers in the 90s, along when I put them right there with Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson, that said, we are going to make, at first anyways, smaller films, and these aren't going to just be stepping stones that nobody's ever going to see. these are going to be films that we're going to be remembered by, and they're going to be our legacy, and we're always going to be able to say, that's what filmmaking is today. And they started a revolution, so I'd say that's his legacy as much as anything else.
Sure.
Good discussion.
Sure.
Good discussion. So, Lynn, where can they find you at on the Twitters?
On the Twitter machine, you can find me at LA_Crow.
John?
What is Twitter?
There was like a rhythm to it, and we both looked at you so expectantly, and you just shut us down.
At the Unreal J Wolves.
You can find me at Brian Cottington from the Psycho Show page. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google Plus at Psycho Show. You can also find us on the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you have a favorite movie or question you want to throw, or you want to talk to us a little bit about Kevin Smith and his film legacy, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Send us a rate, send us a review. Also, be sure to check out our monthly newsletter, Psychos Nation, and sign up for that. And catch a new episode available every Sunday.
And when this comes out, Kevin Smith, please see it and listen and tell us what you think.
Oh, Kevin Smith, please get at us.
Epicast.